Yo, E, so tell me how long has been since you've been in this project?
Honestly, man, it's been about 35 years since I've stepped foot in these projects. Even now, walking on the outskirts, this is what you call outskirts of the projects. Yeah, there's some anxiety. You just never know what you're gonna run into. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna take you guys to the actual building that I grew up. What's up, man? No, just a little documentary about growing up here and then, what life has been, Yeah, man. Used to be from Marcy, years back, man. Yeah. Yeah, I'm talking about, I was up in here. I left when I was about 16, and I didn't move that far. I moved to Williamsburg, but I'm talking about just during that part, the 80s, the late 80s, it was a lot different, man. And the thing was, I was young, but I felt like we were doing stuff on some grown men level, exactly. So it wasn't like you look at 15-year-old kids.
I say that all the time. Growing up, unfortunately, I don't know what it is like to be a kid, because I always was ahead of my time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So playing tag and video games,
yeah.
It was like beneath me.
Nah.
You know what I'm saying? I'm dealing with all these chicks.
Right.
With the older crowd.
Right.
So it was just like, that kind of took away my childhood.
You're right.
You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately.
Like I told my kids, kind of my history, and my kids actually, that time they cried because they was like, yeah, I didn't know you went through that, because my spot, I'm taking them to the apartment where I lived, it was a spot, it was a crack spot. And we had the set, we was the ones who used to put the crack through the door, we all was involved in it as kids, and it used to be wars, because the Jamaicans at one point took over the spot, and I'm growing up in the middle of all of that, where the dudes from the neighborhood is like shooting up at the window because there's like a war between them and it, and I'm in the middle of all of that, and I'm like, yo, this has affected my life. So for me to be at this stage in my life where I got kids, I've moved on.
They're not gonna understand.
Right.
Man.
Appreciate it, my
brother.
Appreciate
your time,
yes,
man.
Sir. Yeah. Thank you, man.
No doubt.
Marcy Project was probably from birth to about 15 years old. So just that 15 years of my life really impacted just a lot of who I am today. And then, but at the same time, it also represents a lot of trauma, of trauma and traumatic things that I've went through in my life. We used to live on Myrtle side, and to us, we felt like we had everything at that point, even though we were on welfare. What transitioned or what moved us to the other side of the project is because me and my brother thought it was cool to play with matches, and we ended up burning down the apartment, man. And and so we were in the shelter for a minute, and then they got us an apartment on the other side of the project. So I ended up at 35 Nostrand Avenue, that address will live with me forever. There were some good times, but I mostly remember a lot of bad times there. When I'm talking about bad times, I'm talking about that's when crack cocaine came on the scene in the 80s, and it was just basically swept through a generation at that time. And my mother got caught up in that cycle to the point where her I would say like her pursuit of the next high was so serious that she was presented an opportunity to turn our home into a crack house. And I gotta tell you, sometimes I didn't think I would actually make it out of that situation alive, but it wasn't until one day when we came home, which been in a couple of weeks for the summer with my dad. Because my dad was still involved in our life, but he would just come see us every now and then he would pick us up, keep us with him for like 2 weeks out of the summer. And we so look forward to that time, bro. I can't tell you. That's almost like if you got like released, just for like 2 weeks. And it was that because we had with him, he was serving God, and it was just nothing but peace with him. And so we wanted to stay in that environment, We would tell him, but I don't think he really understood. Maybe he thought we just didn't want to go back home to live with our mom. But he didn't know that it was that deep until bringing us home that day. And our neighbor, we're knocking on the door, no one's answering. And the neighbor opens and says, "Hey, your mom had an overdose, and she's in the hospital." And I think he looked at us. That was the first time he looked at us, and he said, "I'm taking you, and I'm not bringing you back here." And from that day, since that day, we as a family never lived there, but that didn't stop me from going back there.
Wow.
You can see the bullet holes. I don't know if the camera can see it, but you can see the bullet hole from when they were shooting at my window. You know.
So when he took you in, did you started selling?
I still was coming back here. This was my life, man. This is what I loved. These projects. Even at 15, I mean, it's crazy to say at 15 you were running like that, but at 15 you were a grown man.
Yeah.
Because you've seen a lot.
Yeah.
And it's not like our kids now where we kind of keep them sheltered. They're playing video games all day. Here, it's like you growing up. You in the streets. You coming home late at night.
Yeah.
You know, you're encountering dangerous things that most kids should never have to encounter. So it makes you more aware of what the streets are like. And so you become more, I would say, you start moving more like a man than a child at that point, you know? So that's when things started to change. And here in Marcy, they have their own little police station.
Oh, yeah?
And so
That
he
was
ended
the
up,
housing police.
yeah. And they got a little lockup, little cell, everything over there.
Yeah. Oh,
and so these guys went that night and took the scooter back.
What?
So in the morning, I'm like, oh, you got the scooter back. I jump on it, I'm driving it, and all of a sudden I see this cop car drive up real fast, and I'm thinking like, he's not coming to get me, obviously, but my friends are like on the bench saying, yo, E, run. They coming to get you because you on that stolen scooter.
Oh, wow.
So at that point, I remember, man, I got $300 worth of drugs in my pocket. I got to get off this scooter and I need to start running. And so I run into this building here. And this is something I didn't tell you. I ran into the elevator, but I said, you know what? Don't run in the elevator because you get caught in the elevator.
Yeah.
So I got out the elevator and I said, first thing I got to do, I got to get rid of these drugs. If they catch me, I don't want to get caught with drugs in my pocket. So there was a garbage. I didn't want to throw it in the incinerator because I knew I got to pay that money back if I lose this. So all this stuff going through my head, I got to pay this back. So there was a garbage bag right on the floor in front of the incinerator, because that's how we do. We just leave it there. and I threw it in the garbage bag, and then I ran up the steps. And so as I'm going up to the roof, I get past the third floor, I see an apartment door open. For some reason in the project, nobody just keeps their doors open, but this door was open. And so I go up halfway up the steps and I come back down. I said, I'm not gonna make it. I'm gonna have to go into this apartment and I'm gonna I don't care who's living in there, I'm gonna have to just hold everybody hostage. That was my thinking. But when I get next to the door, I noticed that it's a friend of my mom's, you know? And I run in, I say, hey, the cops are chasing me, the police are chasing me. You need to close the door, let me in here, because if I get caught, I'm definitely going to jail, man. I felt God just threw me an alley-oop, like, yo, here, take that, because you need this, because you're about to mess your life up really bad, to the point it may take you down a road that was not intended for you to go down. This is exactly what I did when I ran in. First I went, got in the elevator.
Oh, that's small. I would be scared to get stuck in there.
So I was like, nah, if I go to the elevator and catch me, so I went here. Open the incinerator. Nah, that's not a good idea. And ran up the stairs to the third floor. And at that point, I just seen like sanctuary. When I seen that door open, I'm like, this is it, man. Just saved my life.
Oh, wow, man.
I see these projects in my dreams. Every time I have a bad dream, it's always in these projects. And so I don't think I'll ever forget what they look like. I still have those dreams even now. I ain't been there in 35 years. And so my last memories of there was not only everything I went through with my mom, but also the fact that what was drawing me back there almost became something that was going to contribute to like either my downfall, ending my life, or whatever. And so I had to leave in a hurry and just totally put it behind me. And I did that. 35 years I did that. So when you came and said, hey, we want to interview and do your testimony, I'm like, man, I've been telling God there's no reason I should ever have to come back to these projects. And we actually went in and I don't know if I mentioned the story that, and I mentioned it earlier with the guy that we were talking to in the car.
Yeah.
That after that person told me, look, just this life isn't for you. Just pay these guys back what you owe them, and just never come back here.
Yeah.
That piece of advice, I don't know, man. It just hit me, and I decided that, you know what, I'm gonna take that advice. I'm gonna come over here because I was already living here, but I was still going back and forth because I didn't want to leave that part of my life because I was tied to that. Those are the people that was what I knew. That was my life, and even though people were shady, but that was just part of life back then. Yeah, and my dad always went to this church. He used to be the van driver. He used to pick people up to come to church. And so he used to always ask me, hey, you want to come downstairs and just to the service? And I'm like, no, it's like really heavy. It was back then. This was like really Pentecostal. I'm talking about like where it was more rules than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm coming out of this situation. Now you want to put me into church.
Yeah.
So I think for about a month or two, I would just sit in my room all day. Then finally, I got tired of doing that because that room is so small, you start to feel claustrophobic. I said, I need to do something else. So let me go see what this is all about, man. Went downstairs, I'm just hover in the back by the door in case I got to make a quick escape. I could just step out. And so I think I do what everybody else does when they're in that transition in their life. They give a quick prayer and you just throw it up like a thought, like, God, if you real, then speak to me right now. Then I'll know that you're real. Yeah. And so I'm there, the preacher's doing his thing, and the church was packed because it was some kind of special service. And my pops leans over to me, and at that point they're doing an altar call, but I don't know because I don't understand Spanish. So my pops leans over to me and says, Jesus is calling you. I'm talking about like when I said that prayer in my head, my pops was like, Jesus is calling you. And I was like, I don't know if it's coincidence, but at that point in my life, man, I needed to hear that, and that was confirmation enough for me. I didn't chalk it up to, oh, this is just coincidence. I felt like God at that point used my pops to say, yo, I've been calling you for years. Now you're at a point where you can hear me, and I'm gonna come to you in a familiar voice. Because my dad was the one who rescued us from that situation, from that crack house. So I'm gonna use that voice to tell you that I'm calling you. And they didn't even have to say nothing to me. As soon as I got to the front of the church, I dropped to my knees and I just started just weeping and weeping and weeping. That was then when I felt God just like release and pulling off the weight and all that stuff off me. And from that day on, this is where I started going to church. I was always in love with her, even from 7th grade. If you could be in love with somebody that young, I think I was in love. I would sit in that crack house and think about her. Listening to, when I'm alone in my room, sometimes I stare at the wall. But the transition is like, I remember one time out of punishment, my mother cut my hair off and bald. And I'm sitting there with my head behind my book bag. I would put my book bag on the desk. I'm trying to hide my head, and she came over and she started talking to me, and still thinking that she was gonna be like all the other kids. You know, she wasn't. She kept talking to me and being friendly toward me. And I think that's when it was like, yo, I think I like this girl. Like 7th grade, so you don't really know about that. I just know that I liked her. We were dating, and I graduated from high school. Didn't really know what to do, so I had this bright idea of going to the military. I didn't really share that too much with her. I graduated one day, and 2 weeks later I was off to the military.
Oh, wow.
Thinking that I got this all planned out. I'm gonna go in, and then we're gonna get married, and I'm gonna bring you, and and then God is gonna really move, and He's gonna bless us, and oh boy, I was in for like the biggest fall of my life, man. No foundation. Going now, I got this freedom as an adult that I never had in my life, and it brought me to a whole different world of what it is to be an adult with this kind of freedom. You know, it's like a big fraternity.
Yeah.
You know, so structure, but then there's no structure at night, and I got so deep into that lifestyle, man, to the point when I totally, I wasn't going to church.
Yeah.
I just pushed everything aside, and I didn't want to know about church. I didn't want to deal with it. But the entire time, she was sending me like these worship CDs, not CDs, but tapes, and I would listen to them, and it would just break me, man. I'd be like, I don't want to listen to this because I don't want to kind of stop.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
God started using that music to really change and impact my soul again and bring me back to a place that I loved. Now remember, I wasn't singing before.
Yeah.
But I felt like this worship is in me, man.
Wow.
You know? And so they did a surprise drug test and I failed. And I knew my wife was going through it, and I told her, look, man, this is the situation. I screwed up my military career. They kicking me out, and they're going to bust me down to like 2 pay grades, and I got to be here. And then after 45 days of restriction, they're going to take me to the gate, and they're going to just say, go home, get out of here. And so I said I could fight this. And if I fight it, they're telling me it'll probably take about 6 months, and at least you'll get out, but you'll still be able to retain a lot of your benefits. You know, and then I've done more than what I was supposed to do to keep my benefits. I remember having this conversation with her, and I said, I don't know what to do, because I feel like if I stay here, I'm gonna just continue to just not do the right thing, but I don't want to leave this way. And then I said, but I'm asking you to tell me what I should do. And she said, you know what, you just need to come home.
Yeah.
And I said, I called the lawyer, the Navy lawyer, and said, look, I want to pull back. I don't want to fight it. I just want to go home. Let me just do the 45 days. I think for my soul, I just got to leave even this behind. Because what I thought I was doing to better myself, it ended up bringing me to a situation now, and I'm not dealing with this stuff with the projects, but now I'm dealing with the reality of who I am separated from God.
Yeah.
You know? I really started to change. I wanted her to see the change in me more, you know, because, you know, and I was determined not to be this guy that I was. And she would see, I would try to hide it every now and then when I would come home on leave.
Yeah.
Like when I would see her after I left Cuba, I would come on leave, and I would try to hide the real person and still try to be like this church guy, but it was so fake, son. You know, I'm out the military. I ain't got nowhere to go. My dad, I can't move in with him. I can't even get a job. I'm like broken as a man. I'm broken. And now the only thing that I'm looking for some security is that now I even messed that up. You know. And the old time she agreed to just ride with me and said, you know what, I believe in you, but this is what I need from you. You know. So she gave me her list, and I was like, I could do that. And so we started going to cell groups and stuff, and from our church they had cell groups in our area. Started going to, and every group that I went to, I felt like God was speaking to us. He would just be like specific. Nobody knew what we were going through. Nobody knew what she was going through, but God would be specific, like this, and I'm healing, and I'm like, remember, I've never had that kind of relationship with God. I never seen him speak that specific, and he was doing it during that time, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Like, this is the kind of God that I always wanted to serve. You know, and I didn't have that before. So now, from just tradition and repetitive religious, you know, now I'm starting to see a God that is personal and that cares about even this situation. And I think that's when I said, yo, I'm never turning back from this. I know if God can heal this, and we've been married now 24 years, you know, so if God could heal this, then, yo, there ain't nothing that he can't do.
After I hear your story, I hear like you said, God, make yourself real to me, and you made yourself real through a love that it like you felt like you didn't deserve, or in any situation it should have left, or when you didn't see yourself highly of yourself, that person still saw you when you were shamed, and or the shame
Right.
ahead, like being ashamed, like she still was there for you, speaking.
Right.
It just like represents Christ's love for you. Like no matter where you were in the storm or the situation, God was like, God is always there,
Right.
and her love was always there for you. It was like God saying, look, I'm going to show you love, though you haven't come to me, though you haven't fully reached out to me. I'm going to show you love with what you asked for, and you maybe you didn't see it in the beginning, but it was when you asked for it, it's just a remembrance of God saying, you know what, I always loved you. There was all these things were going on in your life, but I put someone there as a face, a familiar face. And sometimes people say, you know what, God was with me even back then. And we say that sometimes like more like, so like I look back at it and see that, but like how many people can say a face that I remember a face always through every step of my life. I remember this person's face. And even to now, you're married and you're restored and renewed, and that face is still with you, and it's like totally the love of God, like representing God's love for you, through that. So I just wanted to share that because that's crazy, man. That's God's love for you. That even when you weren't asking for it, even when you ran away, even when you pushed away and did your own thing, it was still there, waiting for you at home,
Right. I never looked at it like that, but that's true. And it supported me through every weird scheme or dream that I've had from Double Edge to today as the worship pastor of the Sanctuary Fellowship. Still supports me, man, which I find incredibly humbling, because if anything, I look at ministry in certain ministries as in the spotlight, they call ministry, especially like a worship leader. And I don't deserve that. She deserved that. If God wanted to use anybody, then why not somebody like her? But still chose to put me in the forefront, with all my flaws and everything.
Got some questions, now we got the answer. And we say, Jesus Christ is the one we've been after. Finally found what I'm searching for. Got me living for so much more. Somebody help me say, in this life, what's the meaning to this life?
Where did Double Edge come in?
Double Edge came in because we went through a transition in that church where I looked through some issues in politics. We want to get deep into that. But it's true. Sometimes the churches go through their own little things within. And I went through a season where I was more hurt than anything else. And I decided to just step down from just doing worship. Still had it in my heart. And so Jason was just learning. Jason is my nephew, which is her nephew, marriage. And he said he was learning guitar, and I said, "Bro, we should just start like a band or something." Never thinking that it would be Double Edge.
How did you get into rock? Like that, I know when I go on a project, everything is hip hop, everything's rap, and I remember going to Long Island one time and hearing Guns N' Roses, and I was like, "Oh man, this is the best thing in the world." Like, where is this at? How did you get caught up in rock?
I hated rock. Remember, I'm like this little project kid
Yeah,
from Brooklyn, man. I hated rock. She used to listen to the rock. And remember, I got put on to like Christian rock.
Colors?
Yeah.
Was that Christian?
That was Christian rock.
I never listened to Christian music.
I was not sitting around listening to regular rock like that.
Yeah.
And then she's listening to Christian rock, and I'm like,
Yeah.
Joe, put that on.
I used to hate it. Oh my God, I used to hate it.
But I don't know where the transition was, where I was like, oh, this sounds kind of dope. And that's when like Creed came out. Even though Creed wasn't a Christian band. But I was like, yo, this sounds dope because it's nice and heavy. That's when the grunge came into rock. And I said, yo, I think I got a voice for this. I never had like a smooth R&B voice, so I wasn't going to be like, but I know that I could scream, I could sing real hard. And I think for rock, if you could sing powerful, that's all you need to do. So yeah, man, rock became my thing. And we did more than what we ever thought we would accomplish. You know, but even still, then I wasn't happy. That wasn't what God. I felt like God wanted me. My heart was always worship, leading God's people in worship.
Oh, Jesus. The atmosphere is changing now, for the Spirit of the Lord is here. The evidence is all around. Come on, somebody say that the Spirit of the Lord, help me say.
How did you become that pastor? How did that story become?
First, I've never stepped foot in the Bronx my entire young life. There was no reason for me to ever be in the Bronx. But I love the Bronx now. And I remember one time when our church, I think, experienced a fire, and they moved from Manhattan to a place right up Bruckner Avenue, Bruckner Boulevard in the Bronx. So now we're traveling from Brooklyn to the Bronx to go to church. You know, and they were still in a transition phase, you know. And so we decided to have a concert for Double Edge there. And we meet Pastor George, who was like down the street at Crossway. And so he came with all his young people, man. They came to support. And it was just a really amazing night, man. God moved. And it wasn't until maybe a few months after that we did another concert with this other brother that was from that church, Manny. He ultimately became our keyboardist on Double Edge. That he said, "Look, man, we do our youth nights on Friday. Won't you come and just kind of minister with us?" And so I was finding myself spending time at Crossway Friday night youth services, doing worship with Sal, with Manny, and those guys, you know. And I think a year went by. We went through a transition phase where we were just like looking to move on. I remember someone telling me that, or getting a memo from George. Somebody emailed me and said that Sanctuary was starting up and they were going to have their first service. We didn't go to their first services, but the second service came, and I remember on our way to church, and I said, you know what, I want to go visit this Sanctuary Fellowship. Let's just go there today. And went there. It was in a little shack with no electricity. You know, and I was like, no way, this is crazy. But we sat there and we listened to George, and like I said, the one thing God knows is that he can minister to my reality, my situation personally. And he hit us with the personal touch again. And I said, this is where we belong. This is our next phase in life. This is my next transition. We identify with his vision. We had such a passion for that ministry that we said, you know what, we need to move to the Bronx. And he knew we were going through a transition of hurt, and so he decided to come to Brooklyn first and minister to us at our home every week.
A lot of healing, the church and the healing and all that. So it was.
And then I was like, it's just the right thing to do at this point. I know George. If you ever hear George talking about it, he was just like nervous because you're like, what if this church don't work out? We got people moving from Brooklyn to the Bronx. Oh my God. But you know when something is right, you know? And I think that we were ready to invest everything because we believe in that ministry. And we weren't even in their ministry per se. Like I wasn't serving on any ministry in that church. I just know that there was something I needed to be connected to there, not knowing that I would ever become the worship pastor there, you know? Then one thing led to another. I started helping out on the worship team, and it's like seasons. You go through season, and then transitions happen, and people, you know, people move on, and you know, I was just at that place. I wasn't doing Double Edge no more. I didn't know what I was gonna do. And they said, hey, won't you be our worship leader, not worship pastor? And just serve at that capacity.
I remember that.
Yeah. And I was happy to do that, you know. And then later on, I remember they saying, hey, we wanna we want to make you a minister. So I went through stages. It wasn't like, you're a pastor. I said, we want to ordain you as a minister, you know. And now God is saying, look, I got more for you. I got more for you. Hold up, it ain't over yet. It ain't over yet, you know. And it was a year later, they made me a pastor. And I ain't gonna, I was broke, man. I was like, man, yo, not in my wildest dreams. And that's when I did the flashback to the crack house to this house. And I was like, man, from that, and now I'm gonna be a pastor. Like, I'm not the pastor of the church, but just to be given that, it meant more to me than the record deal. It meant more to me than any of that stuff, because God is saying, yo, I trust you with this. With all the stuff that you went through, dang, you didn't get emotional on this part. All that stuff you go through, I trust you with this. And then pastor came to me, and I remember when I was leading and I was just kind of doing me, my flow, because you already know how I flow. And they say, we want you to know that we trust you. So whatever you need to say, whatever you do, we want you to know that we trust you up there. And that meant like the world to me. Like, wow, people trust me with this, son. And so I've been doing that ever since, man, you know. And I love it. Let me be straight though. And I gotta be honest, you know, I don't want people to leave thinking like, well, you got it together, and from that now you just this guy who don't make no mistakes, and you got it together. No, man, I'm still transitioning. I don't know what the next stage or what the next thing that God has for me, and I'm just trying to be faithful to this right here, you know. I want people to know that they're never that far away from God. That God's heart and his desire is that we would all, that he would have all of us, you know. And you might be at a place in your life where you think that you've done so much wrong, and that you don't deserve love, and that you don't deserve love from the Father. But if you can look back at my story and see the times of when God loved on me, and then I still decided to turn away, and how he accepted me back and didn't stop there, but to continue to show me grace and favor. I want people to know that he wants the same for them.